What is The Harder They Fall? Well, it is an all-black Western produced by Netflix, in which a number of black historical figures in particular from the Wild West that also happen to be black are basically put into a fictional scenario. It stars Jonathan Majors, Idris Elba, Zazie Beetz, Regina King, Delroy Lindo, Lakeith Stanfield, R.J. Seiler, and Daniela Deadweiler, and Eddie Gathegi. I hope I'm saying that brother's name right. I know he's of African descent. Dion Cole, Damon Wayans Jr., DeWanda Wise, Julio Cesar Cedillo. So, is it any good? Well, the short answer is yes. However, there are some caveats. So let's get into it. So The Harder They Fall, as mentioned previously, is distributed by Netflix. It is executive produced by Jay-Z. And it is not really a bad Western. It's actually pretty fun. But there are problems. So, number one, it is using historical figures from the Wild West, but none of these figures, for the most part, I think with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, ever interacted with each other. And so the story is basically just a fictional tale with historical figures, or at least partially historical. It's hard to explain. But essentially, you're looking at a revenge tale told from the perspective of Nat Love. That character is played by Jonathan Majors, who you'll know from Lovecraft Country and most recently Loki, the Loki Disney Plus series. It's told from his perspective because he is the main character, and in this particular movie, it sets Idris Elba's character up as the antagonist. Idris Elba's character being Rufus Buck. Now, I like the cast of characters. I really, really do. Especially Delroy Lindo as Bass Reeves. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of the character of Bass Reeves, who most people would know as the Lone Ranger, even though that was probably one of the first race swaps in history. You know how I feel about those. You know, it's the type of race swap that was done back in the day. And it was a travesty because Bass Reeves, aka the Lone Ranger, was pretty much one of the first black heroes ever in history as far as the Americas is concerned. So, you know, it just goes to show how history, you know, chooses how it wants to portray certain characters when they're not convenient. But I digress. Delroy Lindo as Bass Reeves was awesome. Everybody, for the most part, in this movie does a really good job in their roles. Lakeith Stanfield as Cherokee Bill, I really enjoyed because he presents an interesting villain in the idea that he is not a mustache twirling villain. He's really just out to get paid, and anything that gets in the way of that is something that's going to be destroyed by whatever means. He has no real code of honor or conduct. He just does what he does, and he's very interesting in that. Really enjoyed him. Really enjoyed Zazie Beetz as Stagecoach Mary. In this movie, though, I have to be honest, I was not really feeling Regina King's character as Trudy Smith, and not for any particular reason, just because the way that the character presents, like, she has a very strong attitude, but because Regina King as a actress is so much smaller than the rest of the cast, a lot of the things that she says and does kind of just ring a little hollow, because I guess she just doesn't have that physical presence. And so even though her words and her demeanor are very intimidating, it just doesn't come off as believable. So that was, you know, somewhat negative. R.J. Seiler as Jim Beckworth was great. He was just, I've liked him ever since he was in Power Rangers, and I continue to enjoy his acting. He's just a fun character in this movie. Idris Elba's, he's always good. He always, gives 110%. Generally speaking, in the movies that in the roles he chooses to take. So we don't really need to talk about that. Other than that, I just really enjoyed most of the cast. I really did. Now, as far as plot-wise, here's where it gets kind of sticky. So the plot in the beginning of the movie is pretty straightforward. And it actually helps the movie by not bogging it down with a bunch of unnecessary details. But as the plot goes forward, there are a lot of contrivances that are used to make characters go into specific places and do specific things that just don't make sense. Like if you're a seasoned criminal, these things, you wouldn't do these things. And then with the inclusion of Bass Reeves as a no-nonsense lawman, some of the things that he allows to happen under his watch, that character just wouldn't do. So, those are the things that really just bother me about it. Now, one of the really pleasant surprises in the story is the addition of Dion Cole's character and just what he does and how he moves the story along is really interesting. But other than that, like I said, the story is like up and down. It's like a roller coaster of really good to really nonsensical, and it kind of happens very quickly. So those are, I guess you would say, pacing issues. Other than that, the story is serviceable, but it's not what you really come for. You're coming for, a Western and gunslinging action, and there's plenty of that. Now, the soundtrack. Now, the soundtrack is really good, but the way that it's used is kind of overbearing at times. It's kind of overwhelming the scenery. And so I didn't really particularly like that in certain places, but in certain places the soundtrack is just, it's hitting. Now, other than that, the use of slow motion shots, I feel like there should have been a little bit, like they should have pulled back on the slow motion shots, because they come across almost music video-like in certain points, and you'll know it when you see it. But other than that, soundtrack was good. It was good. The cinematography was good. The costumes were really, really good. And the action was, for the most part, believable. Now, there are a few all-black westerns. This is not necessarily a new phenomenon. So where would I put it in the pantheon of black westerns? I'd say it's definitely behind Django, and it's definitely behind Mario Van Peebles' Posse. I'd say it's even behind Denzel's Magnificent Seven. So it's up there. It's not the best black western that I've seen, but it's not the worst either. So that being said, I give The Harder They Fall an 8 out of 10. I say it's on Netflix. You can watch it easily. Just go watch it. It's definitely one for the culture. You'll enjoy it. It doesn't really push too many racial themes. There's a little bit of wokeness here and there, but nothing substantial, nothing off-putting, nothing that will take you out of the story. You'll enjoy it. Definitely watch it. All right, guys. If you feel like I've earned your like or subscription, please like the channel, subscribe, maybe even share the video if you feel so inclined. We'll see you on the next one. 8-Bit Heroes out. Peace.